3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone! We've flown to Tuscany for a 10-day adventure, and you're coming with us. I'm going to take you through the places that made this trip unforgettable. Famous cities, tiny hill towns, medieval castles, hidden roads, vineyards, local food, and incredible landscapes. Tuscany is one of those rare places where real life somehow looks even better than the photos. The hills feel softer, the colors feel warmer, and sometimes the road itself becomes the main attraction. Welcome to our film, 10 Days in Tuscany. And trust me, after watching this series, you may suddenly find yourself checking flights to Italy. In this episode, we're waking up in the heart of Chianti, surrounded by vineyards, olive groves, and classic Tuscan views that almost look too perfect to be real. This was our home for a few days, a peaceful countryside base. And honestly, staying here changed the feeling of the trip. Instead of waking up in traffic, we woke up to open hills, quiet roads, and views that made us want to fly the drone before even thinking about breakfast. And this is one of my biggest Tuscany tips. Don't stay only in Florence or Siena. Rent a car and choose a small villa, farmhouse, or agriturismo in the countryside. You'll wake up surrounded by nature, and every morning will already feel like part of the journey. Tuscany is not a place you should experience only through a train window. Many of its best moments are hidden between tiny villages, vineyards, and narrow country roads. After a slow morning at the house, we're heading towards Brolio. And this is exactly what driving through Chianti looks like. Endless rows of vines, silver green olive trees, old stone houses, and hills disappearing into the distance. Here, the road is part of the experience, so don't build a schedule with no space between stops. A 30-minute drive can easily take an hour when every turn gives you another reason to pull over. You'll probably want to stop every 5 minutes, and I completely understand why. Just make sure you stop safely. Many roads in Chianti are narrow, visibility around the bends can be limited, and local drivers definitely know them better than we do. My advice is simple. Add extra time, keep the camera ready, and don't rush. The closer we get to Brolio, the more it feels like modern Italy is slowly disappearing behind us. And here it is, Castello di Brolio, one of the most impressive castles in the Chianti region. The moment you step inside, the atmosphere changes. Stone walls, narrow staircases, stained glass windows, memorials, and quiet rooms that make you instinctively lower your voice. But Brolio is not the kind of place where you need to memorize every historical date to enjoy it. The best part is noticing the details. Sunlight passing through the stained glass, the texture of the ancient walls, and small passages that suddenly open onto enormous views. My advice is not to rush straight towards the wine tasting. First, explore the accessible parts of the castle, walk along the walls, and spend some time at the panoramic viewpoints. Because from up here, you finally understand why people fall in love with Chianti. Vineyards stretch across the hills, olive trees cover the slopes, and every direction looks like a movie scene. The landscape doesn't feel like a background to the castle. It feels like part of the castle itself. And from the air, Brolio becomes even more impressive. The red walls, towers, gardens, and vineyards create perfect geometry across the hills. That's what I love about seeing Tuscany from above. From the ground, you see a beautiful castle and a great view. But from the sky, you understand how everything is connected. The fortress, the roads, the vineyards, and the shape of the land around them. Brolio doesn't feel like something simply placed on top of this hill. It feels like it has grown out of the landscape and watched over Chianti for centuries. Our next stop is Radda in Chianti. It's a small town, but it has more character than many much larger cities. Stone streets, tiny squares, wine shops, and local enotecas. You don't need a complicated sightseeing plan here. Park outside the historic center and simply start walking. One street leads to another, and getting slightly lost is part of the experience. The atmosphere is the main attraction, but pay attention to the ZTL signs. Driving into a restricted historic zone can result in a very unromantic Italian fine after your holiday. I'd recommend visiting Radda later in the afternoon. The temperature becomes more comfortable, the light gets softer, and the town feels calmer. From above, you can see just how compact Radda really is. A few historic streets, stone houses, and a church gathered on one hill and surrounded by green countryside. And that is the real magic of Chianti. There isn't always one huge attraction you need to rush towards or wait in line to photograph. The villages, roads, vineyards, and evening light are the experience. You can walk through Radda quickly, but it stays in your memory, especially when you see how perfectly the town fits into the landscape around it. And this is where we finish our day, surrounded by the vineyards of Chianti. In the next episode, we're heading towards Siena and the incredible landscapes of Val di Orcia. And somehow Tuscany is about to become even more beautiful. Last time, Chianti gave us vineyards, castles, and roads that looked almost too perfect to be real. Welcome back to 10 Days in Tuscany. Today, Tuscany changes the mood completely. We're leaving our quiet countryside home and heading south to Siena, a city where the Middle Ages seem to have simply refused to leave. Siena reveals itself slowly. First, a church above the rooftops, then steep stone streets, narrow passages, and little squares full of everyday life. This is not a city you understand from a map. You understand it by walking, taking the wrong turn, and discovering that the wrong turn is usually the best one. Our first proper stop is Piazza Salombini. It's smaller and quieter than Siena's famous main square, but it immediately sets the tone. Stone palaces, perfect symmetry, and a bank headquarters that looks more like a medieval fortress than an office. One practical tip: leave the car outside the historic center. Siena was made for walking, but bring comfortable shoes because this city apparently has a personal problem with flat streets. Keep following the slope, and Siena suddenly starts pulling you towards its center. One last arch, one more narrow street, and then the city opens into a space that feels completely unexpected. And now this is Piazza del Campo, Siena's enormous shell-shaped main square, and easily one of the most memorable public spaces in Italy. The whole square slopes gently towards Palazzo Pubblico, almost like a giant outdoor theater. Twice every summer, this peaceful place becomes a stage for the Palio, Siena's legendary bareback horse race. The riders represent the city's historic trade, neighborhoods with their own colors, symbols, and rivalries that are still taken very seriously. In the center, Fontgaia means fountain of joy, celebrating the arrival of water here during the Middle Ages. The sculptures you see today are replicas, while the fragile originals are protected inside a museum. My advice? Don't rush through. Sit down for a few minutes, watch the square change around you, and then follow the streets leading away from it. In Siena, every arch and every flag seems to belong to a different story. And from above, the city becomes even more impressive. From the air, Siena finally reveals its full shape, a maze of terracotta roofs, towers, churches, and streets wrapped around the hills. Nothing here feels planned in a modern way, and that is exactly why it looks so beautiful. The city seems to grow naturally out of the landscape, with one narrow street flowing into another and every tower competing for a place on the skyline. From up here, even the busiest streets disappear into the rooftops, and Siena suddenly feels less like a city and more like one enormous medieval work of art. And now we reach Siena's most spectacular building, the Duomo. The first thing you notice is the black and white marble, but the closer you get, the more details appear. Statues, columns, arches, mosaics, and carvings covering almost every part of the facade. It feels less like one building and more like someone decided to turn an entire wall into a work of art. Here's a fun fact. Medieval Siena once planned to expand this cathedral into one of the largest in Europe. The project was abandoned after the Black Death and serious construction problems, leaving behind the unfinished structure known as the Duomo Nuovo. Even without that enormous extension, the cathedral is already one of the most unforgettable sights in Tuscany. Before leaving the cathedral, take a moment to look back. Even the side streets around the Duomo come with dramatic staircases, striped marble walls, and views across Siena's rooftops. This city really refuses to have a boring angle. And once you walk away from the famous landmarks, Siena becomes even more interesting. These flags are not random decorations. The city is divided into 17 historic trade, neighborhoods with their own colors, symbols, traditions, and very serious local pride. We're now walking through the territory of the Orcia, or Goose Contrada. During Palio season, the streets fill with flags, dinners, celebrations, and enough neighborhood rivalry to make modern football fans look surprisingly calm. This is the side of Siena we enjoyed most. Quiet passages, laundry above the streets, tiny cafes, and medieval arches that make an ordinary walk feel like part of a film set. But beyond the last rooftops, Tuscany is about to change completely. And just like that, Siena disappears behind us, and Tuscany opens into the Crete Senesi, a landscape of rolling clay hills, pale ridges, winding roads, and those perfectly placed cypress trees that look almost designed for a movie. The name literally means the Sienese clays, and this land has been shaped for centuries by erosion, creating dramatic gullies and smooth, wave-like fields that change color with every season. And while we're floating over all this beauty, here's your official Travel Karma reminder. Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe. It genuinely helps our little channel grow, and according to absolutely no scientific research, gives you +1 in karma. This is why driving through Tuscany matters. The road between the famous towns is not empty space. Sometimes it becomes the most unforgettable part of the day. Our next stop is Petroio, a tiny medieval village in the municipality of Trequanda, and the kind of place you would probably never discover without a car. The streets spiral around the hill, with stone houses, old wooden doors, narrow arches, and almost no tourists. After the crowds of Siena, it felt like Tuscany had suddenly turned the volume down. We stayed at Palazzo Brandano, a historic palazzo converted into a small hotel, and it paid around €130 for 3 people per night. Petroio is also known for terracotta, a craft practiced here for centuries and celebrated in its own museum. Then, almost without warning, the rooftops opened towards Pienza, a Renaissance town rising above the Val di Orcia. Now we're flying over Pienza, a small hilltop town with one of the biggest ideas in Renaissance Italy. Until the 15th century, this place was called Corsignano. Then Pope Pius II, who was born here, decided to transform his hometown into an ideal city. In 1459, he brought in architect Bernardo Rossellino and reshaped the center around balance, symmetry, and human scale. From above, the result is surprisingly easy to see. The cathedral, the compact streets, and the warm stone rooftops all feel carefully arranged, almost like a miniature city built for a film set. And then the drone moves beyond the rooftops, and you understand why Pienza was built here. The entire Val di Orcia opens below, olive groves, cypress-lined roads, golden fields, and hills rolling all the way to the horizon. This is the Tuscany people imagined before they arrive. The strange part is that, in real life, it somehow looks even better. Every bend in the road reveals another postcard, and every viewpoint makes you stop again. Honestly, traveling through this region is less about getting from one town to another, and more about everything you discover in between. What a day! From medieval Siena to the hills of Val di Orcia. Next time, we explore Pisa, then take the train to Florence. Like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us grow and boost your travel karma.
Welcome back to our Tuscany journey. Today begins in Pisa, where we explore the city beyond its famous tower. We walk through lively shopping streets, past bicycles, cafes, and colorful buildings, and soon reach the River Arno. Pisa feels compact and relaxed, so most of the historic center can be explored comfortably on foot. One useful tip: do not rush straight to the tower. Pisa's riverside streets are quieter, more local, and often completely missed by day trippers. Before continuing, we stop for pizza. In Italy, pizza is often simple: a thin crust, tomato, cheese, and only a few toppings. Good ingredients do most of the work. After lunch, we reach Piazza dei Miracoli. The leaning tower appears behind the trees, and its angle looks even stranger in real life. The tower began leaning during construction because the soft ground could not support its weight evenly. Work continued in stages for nearly 200 years. The tower is only one part of this remarkable square. Beside it stand Pisa Cathedral, the Baptistery, and the Campo Santo. Their white marble facades are covered with arches, columns, sculptures, and geometric details. Together they form one of Europe's most recognizable medieval complexes, now protected as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Beside the cathedral, the Baptistery has a completely different shape. Its circular walls, layered arcades, and sculpted details make it worth viewing from every side. Before leaving Pisa, we returned to the Arno. In the evening light, the colorful riverside buildings reflect on the water, and the city feels quieter. It is a peaceful ending to our first day. The next day, we arrive in Florence and walk from the station into the historic center. The streets quickly become busier, with tall stone buildings, shops, and cafes around every corner. Florence is compact enough to explore on foot, but comfortable shoes are essential, because a full day here means a lot of walking. On the way to the Duomo, even ordinary streets feel cinematic. The dome keeps appearing between the buildings, guiding us forward. Then Florence Cathedral suddenly fills the street ahead of us. Santa Maria del Fiore is covered in green, white, and pink marble, while Brunelleschi's enormous dome dominates the skyline. From the square, the cathedral feels far larger and more detailed than photographs suggest. The cathedral complex also includes Giotto's bell tower and the baptistery of St. John. Every side reveals carved doors, statues, marble patterns, and decorative arches. As we continue through the surrounding streets, the red dome keeps appearing above the rooftops, making it an easy landmark while exploring central Florence. And while Florence opens beneath us, here is your travel karma reminder. Leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow. From a rooftop terrace, Florence looks completely different. Terracotta roofs stretch in every direction, church towers rise above the city, and the cathedral dome remains the dominant feature. These elevated views show how tightly packed the historic center really is. Back at street level, we reach Piazza della Signoria, the historic political heart of Florence. Palazzo Vecchio towers over the square, while the Loggia dei Lance displays famous sculptures beneath its arches. Nearby, the Fountain of Neptune and the surrounding statues make the entire piazza feel like an open-air museum. One detail many visitors miss: the David outside Palazzo Vecchio is a replica. Michelangelo's original is protected inside the Accademia Gallery, a short walk away. Inside Palazzo Vecchio, even the entrance feels ceremonial. The Michelangelo courtyard is filled with ornate columns and beautifully painted vaults, turning this small passage into a work of art. After admiring the courtyard, we return to Florence's narrow streets, local bakeries and cafes. Just a few blocks from the major landmarks, prices are often lower and the atmosphere feels much calmer. As evening approaches, Florence becomes quieter and the harsh daylight turns warm. We walk toward the Arno through residential streets and small squares, watching the stone facades change color. Our final destination is across the river and uphill, Piazzale Michelangelo. A simple Florence tip: save Piazzale Michelangelo for late afternoon. Bring water and start climbing before sunset. You will avoid the strongest heat and still have time to find a good viewpoint. The climb to Piazzale Michelangelo takes some effort after a full day on foot, but every higher turn reveals more of Florence below. The viewpoint is extremely popular at sunset, so arriving early gives you a better chance of finding a place near the railing. These are not ancient ruins, but the Rampa del Poggi, a 19th century landscape designed by Giuseppe Poggi. Grottos, fountains, and terraces guide water downhill while turning the climb into a hidden garden. From Piazzale Michelangelo, Florence glows beneath us. The Arno, Palazzo Vecchio, and the Duomo rising above the rooftops. As sunset settles over Tuscany, it feels like the perfect ending to Pisa and Florence. Next time, we explore more of Florence, then drive into Chianti, visit grave and medieval San Gimignano. See you in the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Flight was delayed or canceled, My Sky Help can help you get compensation, up to €600. No stress, no upfront payments. Just fill out your flight info on our website and our team will handle the rest. Our commission of 25 to 28% is deducted only after the airline pays you. Visit myskyhelp.com.